We would be honored if you would join us.
Miami has the Dolphins, the greatest football team. We take the ball from goal to goal like no one's ever seen. We're in the air, we're on the ground, we're always in control. And when you say Miami, you're talking Super Bowl, 'cause we're the Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins #1.
Welcome, Dolphin fans, to another Victory Monday over the Jets this time. You're listening to Stephen Wotocek and Mike Hernandez. Aaron Katzker unfortunately could not join us tonight due to work obligations, but we're here after a 31-28 victory over the Jets.
All too easy.
You're listening to the DolphinsReport.com podcast brought to you by Scout Media. Mike, what are your thoughts? How did you feel about watching this game over the weekend?
Dude, this was the most exciting Dolphins game out of the whole entire year. Man, Jay Cutler, although he did play good in the first half, he got hurt in the third quarter. And then, the savior, the quarterback that we've all been, well, maybe not all of us, but a lot of the fans have been clamoring for, Matt Moore, steps in, just comes off the bench. And the Dolphins are down, I think, like 14-0 in the second half. And he just, he does what he does. He just came in there, took command, played with confidence, opened up the offense, just threw downfield and got the team back in it. And eventually they won the game with a field goal. Yeah,
he did. He came in. He looked very poised in there. I believe it was 21-14 when he came in, 28-14 when he came in. He came in, led 2 touchdown drives, did have a horrible interception in the very beginning. Looked like a little bit of a miscommunication between him and the tight end Fasano. But there's nothing any Dolphins fan can look at and really nitpick over what Matt Moore showed us.
Yeah.
Jay Cutler, he looked good.
Impressive.
But we were still losing with him in the game.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, not exactly his fault. The Dolphins defense didn't have their best first half of the season. I mean, in the first half they allowed 21 points, and on the Jets' first drive they went 5 plays for 75 yards, and there were a couple big runs there, and then when they got inside, I think it was like around the 30-yard line, Josh McCown bombed one down the right sideline to Jermaine Kearse for a touchdown with Tankersley in coverage. I don't know if there was a miscommunication there or not, but There was an early score, but then the Dolphins came right back and scored a touchdown.
Yeah, by the time, like I said, going to the games every Sunday, by the time I got to my seats, I saw the Dolphins go down and drive, and I was up and cheering and happy. I said, oh, it's 7-0, it's 7-0. And then I looked up at the board. I said, wait a second. It's 7-7? How did the Jets drive down that fast? And you're absolutely correct. It was only 5 plays it took them. I mean, 5 plays, and it was a 29-yard pass to Jeremy Curley over there for a touchdown. Or Jermaine Kearse, I'm sorry. Jermaine Kearse got the touchdown 29 yards out. And, I mean, luckily I wasn't in the stadium for that part because it would have been a bit of a bummer to start a game off like that. But the Dolphins, they hung in there and they went right down on the very next drive and answered the call. And, I mean, I think that was a key point to go ahead and answer the call on your very first drive as they did.
Especially with this offense just struggling to get any sort of scoring drives going throughout the whole year. It was, for the Jets to score that early and that fast, like, as a Dolphins fan, knowing this team and knowing how bad the offense has been, you're just like, you let out this deep sigh thinking that, oh, God, it's going to take forever for us to finally get a touchdown going. But, playing at home and on this terrible, terrible field that was just decimated by weather in the game the day before, the game the day before. I thought it was going to be like one of those defensive games, this low-scoring defensive game, but, it wasn't.
No, both teams did a good job of finding the right cleats, and, I don't know, during the commercial breaks on TV when you're there at the stadium, you see, the trainers, they come running out there with these pads for you to go ahead and scrape your cleats off. So they're keeping the cleats clean. They got the longer studs in there to get more grip. As you mentioned, the Miami Hurricanes game the day before, it started to rain. They tore the field up. Players from both teams went ahead and made comments on it. They said, it was playable, but it wasn't NFL. It's not NFL standard field.
No.
And that was actually a field that was replaced earlier in the week that week. So it was a brand new field going into Saturday. But when the rain comes in and you have a team like the Hurricanes out there, or any college team for that matter, going out there playing a full game, the field's going to get torn up. You would hope that the training staff, the field staff would have a little bit more effect on the field prior, but you only have 12 hours before the next before players come out there.
It's not that long. I mean, who grows a whole field of grass?
No, you don't grow a whole new field of grass.
Not a whole field, but you're planting sod. You're throwing it as much as possible. But I mean, it's Mother Nature, man. You can't just
exactly
put Mother Nature in a microwave and just force it to grow. But yeah, man, there was some bad. I got a couple of them written down here. The plays that were affected by the bad field. Ajayi slipped on a 2nd and 11. He ran for like 11 yards, and he probably could have ran for more, but then he slipped, and then he fell down early in the game, and then he had to head to the sideline because I think that he either his cleat fell off or like his knee twisted in a weird way, and then there was a Jets one where the punt returner Curley, he slipped on his return when he tried to make a juke. Then there was another one by a Jets player. He slipped on a handoff. And then Jakeem Grant, and at some point in the game, slipped on a punt return. And then in the second quarter, Jets running back Bilal Powell slipped around the 6:20 mark. There was a couple of them.
No, it wasn't. It
wasn't necessarily anything to really affect the game. But, they were there. You could tell that the field was just
as much as it didn't affect the game, you could say it affected the game. Neither team rushed for over 100 yards. Now, neither team, the Dolphins, they're 29th in the league in rushing, where the Jets are, I believe, they're 19th in the league in rushing. So neither team really is built around the rushing attack they would both want to be. Both teams want to be, but they haven't been so far this year, especially with injuries up and down the offensive line for the Dolphins. But the Dolphins ended up with only 53 total yards in rushing, I believe it was.
Really? Oh,
yeah,
God.
53 total yards. Yeah, Jay Ajayi had 23 carries and 51 total yards. And you're right, he had that 11-yard run, and then he slipped and fell. That was his long of the game.
Yeah, he had a couple nice ones, but then as the game went on, it was kind of like hit or miss with the running game. The Jets did a good job stopping it, which is kind of unusual for them because they're the 28th best rush defense. But we didn't get to run the ball against them the first time up in New York. So I guess
we weren't able to do anything the first time.
That's true.
We couldn't do diddly poo offensively. We couldn't make a first down. We couldn't run the ball. We didn't try to run the ball. We couldn't complete a pass. The second half we.
So yeah.
No, this game, granted with the field being the way it was, it opened up the passing game. You knew both teams were going to be trying to pass it a lot more. Josh McCown, he did a pretty darn good game for himself. He had, 17 for 27, 209 yards, 3 touchdowns, and then the one crucial interception to basically end the game.
You might as well kiss the baby.
And then Jay Cutler, he started off the game before he got injured. He was 12 of 16 for 138 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception.
Impressive.
It was an interception you would not want to see.
114.1 quarterback rating.
Most impressive.
Hey, that's not bad. He had better QBR, also 79.7 QBR.
I don't even know. I don't know how they factor in the formula to come up with these numbers, but that's what they are.
It's all numbers. They got to continually find new things to be able to judge people. It's some weirdo in the back room somewhere coming up with some new stuff.
Some nerd.
Yep, absolutely.
I'm good with calculation.
But like I was saying, though, Jay Cutler, he started the game off pretty well. You would hope for the defense. We allowed over 20 points for the first time this season. We had 20 points scored on us twice this season. We had 28 points scored on us this time. I've always said all along that if we need our offense to score 30 or more, it's not going to happen.
Nope.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
I was quoted on saying that last week on our podcast. If we have to score over 30, we're most likely never going to win that game.
Never tell me the odds.
Somehow this time we were able to find a way to grind it out and get the victory, down 14 in the fourth quarter. That just goes to show, that goes back to really all season owe to Dolphins. I mean, even the game when we lost to the Jets, we got a garbage time touchdown. Showed that we will never quit. If there's one thing we can really look at on this Dolphins team, it's there's no quitters.
No.
Never give up, never surrender.
They're going to continue and try their best from the first whistle to the last whistle. And that's something you want to see on a team.
I don't know how the coaching staff has got the defense to always fight hard, and this team overall to just always fight hard in and out. Because even going back to last year, there's so many games where just things weren't going our way, but it was close, and they just kept their fight in it. And I'm really proud of this team in that way, because we've seen other Dolphins teams they just give up and they just let down. I wouldn't say necessarily give up. It's hard for me to say about professional athletes, but. It just looks like there's been letdown after letdown or blown coverage after blown coverage. And in all these close games, I think it's 12 in a row now.
12 in a row, yes.
That, and if
decided by 7 or less points.
7 or less points, yeah. I mean, they've won. It's insane. I think is it an NFL record?
I'm not quite sure if it's an NFL record. That's a good stat to go ahead and try and find. But I'm not quite sure if it's an NFL record, a Dolphin record, or anything like that. But what it does show you is the team's never going to quit. And when it's a close game, they're going to find a way to pull it out.
Yeah.
And they've done it now 12 straight times where it's a close game. They're going to end up pulling it out.
Never give up, never surrender.
Is it going to end up biting you in the butt at some point? Maybe. Or are we going to continue to see something that just clicks at the end saying, hey, you know what? It's time, guys. Let's go out there and let's score a couple touchdowns or kick a field goal to go ahead and win this game.
And credit to Adam Gase, because in all these games where we did have the ball at the end in the close game, we did a good job of just chewing off the clock as much as we could and actually moving the ball down the field at least enough before we either scored a couple game-winning points or until we finally had to give it over to the other team and force them in a bad position where they barely had any time left and they were pressured to finally move against our defense for a long drive for the game winner. So good. Okay, so let's talk about what's really going on in this team. Let's talk about the great quarterback controversy that's going on.
I personally don't find it much of a quarterback controversy at this point due to the injury.
Yes. But there's going to be one.
You know that Cutler's out right now. And here's the thing. We have 3 straight primetime games. We're going to be Thursday night against the Ravens. Mm-hmm. And then our next game after that is against the, Panthers, I believe.
I have to check it. I don't go that far ahead. I'm like Adam Gase, just one game at a time.
Smart man.
Yep.
But, yeah, either way, we had 3 straight primetime games. And if we go 2-1 in those games or 3-0 in those games, I don't think there's a quarterback controversy. You have to keep Matt Moore in there.
The force is with him.
You're not going to go ahead and you're not going to put Jay Cutler back in.
When you have the hot hand going.
Exactly, yeah. It's the Ravens.
But, Matt Moore has to perform the way he did coming off the bench on Sunday.
I've got it right here. It's the Ravens on Thursday night. Then you're home against the Raiders for a Sunday night game. And then you're away to the Panthers for a Monday night game.
Ooh, the Raiders are going to be tough.
Really, I mean, the Ravens haven't been much this year, but as Dolphin fans, we know that's our kryptonite.
Yeah.
For some reason, ever since Greg Camarillo scored the amazing touchdown to get us our one single victory back in, I think it was 2007, they've had our number.
Yeah.
We can't.
Every time we play the Ravens, their defense just
it's like they're in our offensive huddle.
Yeah.
I mean, it really does look like that.
Now, if you want to crown them, then crown their ass.
No matter what quarterback we have, whether it's Chad Henne or Matt Moore or Ryan Tannehill.
You throw Tom Brady back there, they're still in our huddle. I mean, they have our numbers. So, I mean, what I'm getting at is if Matt Moore goes 2-1 or 3-0, there's no controversy. You keep Cutler on the bench. Mm-hmm. You keep him on the bench. Oh, but we're paying him $10 million.
This deal is getting worse all the time.
Yeah, well, you know what? You might be paying him $10 million, but when you're winning, you make that $10 million back through revenue.
Yeah. We're also paying Byron Maxwell around $10 million too, and we don't have a problem benching him. I mean, he's hurt right now.
Yeah, he's hurt right now.
But I mean, even last year we benched him, and we were paying him a lot of money too. So I mean, I think Gase has the mentality of playing the best player regardless of how much you're paying him.
Yeah, and that's what I've said all along. This is Gase's team. And Gase doesn't care what you think. Gase doesn't necessarily care what you're making. Gase is going to go with the players that he believes are going to win you the games. He's going to stick by his hand no matter what. And he proved it earlier in the season. I mentioned as the fans are screaming, we want more, we want more. And then you're down 17-0 the very next game in Atlanta. A lot of fans sitting at home thinking maybe he's going to throw more in to start the second half. He keeps Cutler in. Cutler goes down. He wins the game. You score 20 straight points. You shut out the Atlanta offense in the second half of that game. You're coming off a high. He comes into this game. He's doing pretty darn good. Like I said, he does have that one bad interception where he throws it inside his own 5-yard line. And
but that was deflected. You could have saw the guy there, but the guy jumped up and batted the ball down.
It was a good defensive play.
It was.
So that's one, like you say, you can't really throw on the Cutler's shoulders. He was 12 of 16 when he got injured.
Good.
That's pretty darn good, yeah. And,
And he was actually throwing downfield a little bit more. He was looking more comfortable, but when Matt Moore came on the field, it wasn't just that Matt Moore looked comfortable. He just looked confident. He just had a different command of the offense because he's been with these guys for over 2 years. Like, he's been on this Dolphins team since 2011, even before Ryan Tannehill got to the team. And he just, a lot of these players haven't been here that long, but, for the last 2 years or so, like, he has a lot of chemistry with what this team did because he had to fill in last year for, 3 or 4 games. And then even going into training camp, once Tannehill went down, then he was practicing with the starting offense for a handful of practices before Cutler got there. So he has a great, just knack for having chemistry with all his receivers. And even Gase said it today this morning.
Yeah, and I read something late last night where Kenny Stills came out and said that, look, even though Matt Moore is not our starter, he still gets starters reps sometimes during practice. And on Fridays, we run a lot of routes together. And it showed. He caught 2 touchdown passes.
Stills was like his favorite receiver.
It was his favorite receiver. And like I say, it definitely showed. If it wasn't for Matt Moore and Stills in that fourth quarter, you're probably getting swept by your division rival Jets. And let's face it, the Jets now are at 3-4. Going into the year, everybody would thought they'd probably be at 0-7 right now.
Yeah.
And you're a quarter away from getting swept by what was arguably going to be the worst team entering the league. So that would bring the team morale down. Whereas this, you have you're on 3 straight wins.
Yeah.
For the
and
Dolphins.
You're 4-2, and you're
a half a game out of first in your division, and behind the Patriots of all teams, who you still have to play twice. So who knows what happens?
If only the Falcons could beat an AFC East team.
Atlanta Falcons.
That'd be great for one of us.
That's 4 straight losses to the AFC.
They lost to the Falcons lost to the Patriots in the Super Bowl. Then they lost to it was the
Bills.
The Bills.
Then the Dolphins.
Then the Dolphins.
And
now the Patriots again. Have they played the Jets yet?
Not to my knowledge. I don't know.
Well, they have an AFC East curse going on a little bit.
But, all of that aside and everything, you look at this game, it was a great offensive production. It really was. We had 304 total yards passing and 4 touchdown passes.
4 touchdown
Last
passes. Week we had 2, and now we have 4.
Slowly moving up. Going into last week's game, we had 41 total points scored on offense. We scored 31 last night, yesterday. So that goes to show, as the season goes on and the players click more, and Adam Gase, remember, this is only his second year with the Dolphins. Maybe the playbook's starting to get more familiar with the rest of the players. And, Cutler, obviously, like I said, coming in, he thought he was going to be sitting in the booth watching games. He didn't think he'd be down on the sidelines.
No. But so, when you offer him,
$10 million,
$9.5 million more than his broadcasting salary.
He's going to come out of retirement, absolutely. He had to speak with his wife. His wife had to so-called convince him to come out.
I don't know why. Didn't the money say it all?
That's why the wife convinced him.
Why did the wife need to convince him? Why can't the money just convince him? Maybe, I don't know. Maybe he just didn't want to take the hits anymore. He's been beaten up ever since. I don't believe in him as a quarterback because I don't think he's ever grown exactly because I think him and Matt Moore are kind of on the same level. But even though I think Cutler has more physical talent because of his arm and the accuracy, but he got beat up a lot in Chicago because he didn't have an offensive line for a long time.
The deflector shield.
And that kind of led to his injuries. Like, even yesterday, like, once the Dolphins signed him on this team, I'm like, he's at some point, especially playing behind this offensive line that doesn't
The deflector shield.
play up to its potential all the time, he's going to take hits, and eventually he's going to get hurt because he's missed 26 games since 2010 with multiple different kind of injuries. So, I mean, at some point he was going to go down this season. So, I was perfectly fine coming into the season and just riding with Matt Moore because I think either if you have Cutler or Matt Moore, they're going to take you to the same place.
And again, that's where you and I tend to defer on that. I know you believe they're both on the same level, and you can make an argument, a strong argument, one that I necessarily couldn't totally agree with or disagree with, that they are kind of on the same level, but Jay Cutler just possesses more skill. Matt Moore has the heart. Matt Moore has the will to go out there and try and win, whereas, it's Smoking Jay. He doesn't have the heart. He doesn't have the enthusiasm that other players have. He's always just relied on skill and skill alone.
That's why he throws off his back foot all the time.
Throws off his back foot all the time. Now, he's got a strong arm, so he is capable of doing that from time to time, but it's going to hurt you more than it's going to help you. But it brings in the controversy now, like I was mentioning. If Matt Moore goes 1-2 in these games, now granted, it's 3 primetime games, 3 good games, who's the starter after Jay Cutler gets healthy, say, in 4 weeks?
I mean, it all depends on how Matt Moore performs. Like, the Dolphins could win. I mean, they won earlier in the game, and Cutler didn't look good at all. He was the number 30th quarterback or number 32nd quarterback, and somewhere in between there for a handful of weeks. But the Dolphins still won. So it's not just about winning; it's about what you're doing in those games. I mean,
controlling the game.
Yeah, I mean, Matt Moore's going to have a hard time against the Ravens because every Dolphins quarterback has a hard time against the Ravens. So it all depends on how he performs there. Against the Raiders, he could probably have a better chance because their defense still isn't that good, no matter what they did to it over the last couple off seasons. But their defense still isn't good. And then what's the next one?
The next one is at the Panthers. That's a Monday night game.
At the Panthers. That one's going to be another tougher one. But, I mean, it all depends on how he plays. I mean, if he could throw for 200 yards and 2 touchdowns in each of those games, I mean, I guess that's pretty good.
So let's go with this route then. Let's say he loses to the Ravens, he beats the Raiders, and loses to the Panthers. But he has good stats in those games. And then the next week, Jay Cutler's healthy, and you're home against the Buccaneers, and you say, okay, you know what? We're going to keep Moore in. And then Moore goes out against the Buccaneers, who haven't really shown much this year. They had a lot of promise coming in, but they haven't shown much. Now, a lot can change in 3 weeks. A lot can change when we end up playing them, and that's going to be what was supposed to be our bye week, November 19th. Say he comes in that game, he throws no touchdowns, 2 interceptions, we lose the game 21-7. Going into that next game, you're at the Patriots. Do you go back to Jay Cutler, or are you going to try and stick with Moore? At which point, when does your team start to say, does my coach necessarily know who he wants at quarterback at this point?
Man, that's a tough question. But, I mean, it all depends on the emotional swing happening there. Like, it could just be just a bad game. Do you really want to, say Matt Moore's playing well and then just has one bad game right before the Patriots game. Do you really want to just make that quarterback switch because of one bad game?
But let's say he has, like I said, the first 3 games are decent games. He goes 1-2, then he has the bad game. Now he's 1-3, whereas Jay Cutler, even with his bad games, had this team at 3-2.
I don't know. I'd ride with whatever quarterback's performing.
You go into the locker room and say, "Hey, who do you guys want back here? Is that what you want? Is that the route that you want to go to?"
I don't think you could leave it up to a vote in the team, can you? Because then that could lead to a locker room split.
I mean, it could lead to a locker room split, but then it could also lead to a locker room split with the head coach of, "Hey, man, he's not doing what he's supposed to be doing, and we were winning with this guy. ugly, but we were winning with this guy. And you're going to keep him on the bench, and we're losing with this guy, even though he's producing numbers, but we're still losing. I say if he goes 1-2 and then loses that next game, it's a no-brainer. You go back to Jay Cutler. And then guess what? At that point of the season, that's going to be November 26th, Sunday against the Patriots. That'll be the next game after that. If you lose again, now you're just playing for a draft pick. I mean, at the beginning of the season, even if we had Ryan Tannehill back there, we knew we weren't a Super Bowl contending team. We most likely were not going to be going to the AFC Championship game.
We were hoping for playoffs.
We
somehow.
I would think as a Dolphins fan, we expected the playoffs this year. After what we did last year, the streak we went on last year, seeing the way Tannehill was able to roll the pocket and perform during, I believe it was a 7-game win streak, we expected that, to carry over into this season.
Hopefully get like a wild card spot because the Patriots are probably going to win the division like they
That's
always do.
exactly what it is. You're not expecting to win the division as long as Bill Belichick and Tom Brady are back there and you have Tannehill and company at the Dolphins. It's just not going to happen. I mean, we're waiting until Tom Brady retires to go ahead and realistically say, hey, we're going to win our division. But what I was getting at is as a real Dolphin fan, your expectations were second-round playoffs.
Yeah.
Second-round playoffs. So even with either one of these quarterbacks, it's not going to be, if we don't make the playoffs, we're going to say, oh, it was a failure of a season, but we had injuries and this and that. Devontae Parker's missed time. Who knows if he's going to really get fully healthy, come back. Are we going to rush him back for Thursday night and then he re-injures his ankle? Who knows how long he stays out for? Mike Pouncey with his hip has been hurting. Laramie Tunsil goes down yesterday with a knee injury. They say it's not as bad as they expected, but they're not sure if he's going to be able to play this week coming up Thursday night.
Gase says it was looking positive this morning. So I guess he's back on track. They said it wasn't as serious as they thought originally. So I think he's going to play on Thursday. That's what I think Gase said at the end of the press conference.
Okay. So, I mean, basically what I'm getting at, I don't think this season, regardless of where we finish, unless we finish on a losing streak here on out, we're 4-2 right now. We're setting our goals up high. The goals are up high right now. We're 4-2
but that's the thing. It's like
ugly ball.
But then what are your expectations? Okay, say we're expecting a wild card spot with Tannehill.
Yes.
Lucky enough to get a wild card spot anyway. So then what are the expectations once you bring Jay Cutler in for $10 million?
See, I thought they had the same expectations. Wild card, make the playoffs with Jay Cutler, but you're not going to get into the second round. And you're not getting into the AFC Championship game. I mean, it's that simple.
But then that's the thing. It's like, why even make that move? You already have a good backup that could,
Because that's exactly what he is, a good backup, and that's what he showed yesterday.
But okay.
Now, I hope Matt Moore proves me wrong and goes ahead and goes in Thursday night and wins, and then goes out the next week after that, home against the Raiders, Sunday Night Football. It's going to be a great environment with a bunch of fans that have been screaming your name all season long on the home games. Come in there and win, and who knows, maybe we can push Matt Moore over that edge. Because like I've always said, he's a perennial backup quarterback. He is probably the best backup quarterback in the league. But when you give teams, week to 2 weeks to plan for him, that's when he shows his true colors. And, he's not going to win the games. I mean, he proved it with Carolina. That's why he's been a backup at Miami for so long. He's not, like I've always said, at best, he's a 9-7 player. Now, granted, with Tannehill this year,
in 2011 he went 6-6.
Exactly, 6-6.
Yeah, but then what's Cutler? What does Cutler really do?
Well, I mean, Cutler
he's
had
a mediocre
3-2.
quarterback too.
Cutler was a career starting quarterback who had not the greatest of teams around him, and he's shown his flashes. Like I said, the difference between Cutler and Matt Moore is Cutler has the skill. Matt Moore has the heart and passion. If we could just somehow put both of them together,
then Ryan Tannehill.
I would even put him over Ryan Tannehill. I'm a Tannehill fan. I like him. I want him back.
He's a hard worker, too.
He's a hard worker, and he's a locker room guy. The people in the locker room like Tannehill. There's not that controversy. The player that didn't like him, Brent Grimes, his wife didn't like him. We got rid of them. We said, you're a cancer to the team. bye-bye.
Yeah.
Sorry, we don't need your distraction
That's the
inside
thing.
our
Like,
locker room.
I don't even think Brent Grimes, he's really quiet. So I think a lot of it's just like Miko just blowing off her mouth because she's always been like that. She can't be contained. Her mouth can't be duct taped by any. And maybe Grimes kind of likes to do that.
All right. Well, my question to you is right now.
Yeah.
Is there anything that specifically stuck out to you during this game?
Anything that specifically stuck out to us? I mean, one thing that stuck out to me was the defense. I mean, they allowed a season-high 28 points by the opposing team, which that was shocking because, I think the highest they've allowed is 20 points in a game. And, Tankersley, he got burned for 2 touchdowns by Jermaine Kearse and Robbie Anderson, but at the same time, either one of them was kind of like a miscommunication or maybe it's just inexperience because he's a rookie and he's only played a couple games so far. He's looked really good up until this point. I wouldn't say I want to be too worried about him, but if it continues, then it could be a concern once Maxwell comes. Maxwell always somehow finds his way back into the starting lineup, whether it's due to injury or due to his backup not performing up to par. But other than those two things. No, Ajayi still doesn't have a rushing touchdown on the season.
Yeah, that's a pretty big point right there.
That's a big one.
When your offense is built around the rushing game, you kind of want to have your running back have a touchdown by, what are we, week 7?
Week 7.
Yeah. Week 7, 6 games in, your running back doesn't have a rushing touchdown. Mm-hmm. That kind of hurts.
We won 4 games without a rushing touchdown by Ajayi, which is supposed to be our bread and butter this season, which is supposed to be the guy that Gase wanted to give 350 carries to throughout the whole season, said that they were going to run him into the ground as much as they could. But another thing I really liked is that Damian Williams is getting more involved in the passing game. Because although I like Jay Ajayi, he's just not as much of a skilled pass catcher as Damian Williams is. I don't think he's as agile, running routes like Damian Williams is. And Damian Williams just has the more of an agile kind of quickness to him and better hands. So
I would have to agree with that.
I liked him getting more involved because it adds another element to the offense that we didn't see in the first handful of weeks. Our offense looked very boring and very just predictable. It was just like run on first and second down and we'll throw a dink and dunk pass on third down. It was very boring. Jay Cutler looked like he was getting more comfortable in the offense this game. The rush. The Jets' rush, it was like on and off. Like there was times during the game when we did have time to pass and got room to develop plays downfield, but then there was also times where the rush was just on us. How many times did our quarterbacks get sacked in this game?
They had 3 sacks, as did we. They also had 8 tackles for a loss, though.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so they did live in the backfield quite often, but that Pouncey wasn't healthy. Tunzel left the game early. Jesse Davis comes in. He replaces Tunzel. So, the offensive line was a little beat up, so you can understand we're a little bit of the, 8 tackles for a loss, that raises your eyebrow. Yeah. You never want to see that.
That's 8 negative plays happening.
We had 4 for ourselves, so they had double the amount of tackles for a loss.
What were the penalties? Penalties was another one, too. I remember a lot of flags being thrown, but... that's another thing that needs to be cleaned up, too, by this team.
Penalties, the Dolphins had 9 penalties for 76 yards, whereas the Jets...
That's too much.
The Jets had 12 penalties for 124 yards.
Yeah. So, a couple of those were the holdings and the pass interference calls whenever it still got open. Mm-hmm. I don't know. What about you? What did you think? What stood out to you?
The tight ends.
Oh, yes, the element of the tight ends.
We started using our tight ends in this game. Anthony Fasano had 3 catches for 25 yards and a touchdown. Julius Thomas had 3 catches for 58 yards and an amazing one-handed grab.
Mm-hmm. Compliments of Matt Moore.
Compliments of Matt Moore, absolutely. Like you say, you can't nitpick anything either one of our quarterbacks really did. Matt Moore's interception was basically a miscommunication between him and our tight end, Anthony Fasano. Fasano looked like he didn't expect to pass. He looked like he was looking to block.
Yeah.
And the other one, like you said,
I don't know why he's looking to
tipped.
block when he's running a seam down the
15
field.
yards down the field.
Yeah.
I agree. I understand that. But
He probably just felt like I haven't been involved up until this point, really. So why am I going to look back for the ball? But I mean, you got to turn around and once you're 15 yards downfield, you got to at least look back.
you got to have your head on a swivel.
Yeah.
You got to understand the time of the game, what's going on with the down and distances, and that you are on the field in a receiving position. Yeah.
Come on, Fasano, you're a second-round pick. You're better than that.
Hey, he got us a touchdown, and that helped us win the game. So I'm A-okay with him not looking right there. And another thing that I really
nice
looked at is when Matt Moore entered the game, it looked like our team really rallied around him. I'm not going to say that our team likes him more than Cutler, but anytime your starting quarterback goes down, the rest of the team, regardless of who the backup is or who the starter is, the rest of the team's going to come out and they're going to try even harder. And that is something that I noticed. And was it the first drive in the second half is when Cutler went down. They had one touchdown in the second half, the Jets. We had 2 touchdowns in the game. It was 21-14 at halftime. The Jets opened it up to 28-14 early in the third. Cutler goes down. Moore comes in. The team really rallies around him. The defense starts playing harder because they say, we can't give up any more points because we know what our offense can do. If they gave up any more points, you're not going to win that game. As I said before, if you need your offense really on the offensive side to score more than 30 points, you're most likely not going to win the game. This time, we found a way to etch it out and get the victory. And it's like I've said all year long, we're able to keep our knuckles in the dirt. We're a gritty team. We don't give up. We fight. We fight. We fight.
Never give up. Never surrender.
And it doesn't matter, like I say, if it's the first whistle or the last whistle, we're always going to be trying to do something. And a lot of teams, when you're down 14 points in the fourth quarter, some of the players, they're looking to next week. They're already moping around on the sideline. You didn't see that with this Dolphins team yesterday. Nope. They said, okay, give us the ball back. Give us another chance. Yeah. Give us another shot.
They had enough time. I mean, that interception by the Dolphins happened early in the third quarter. So and then that also gave the Jets an easy touchdown because they got the ball inside the 5 and Josh McCown just sneaked it in. So I mean, if you think about it, if that interception never even happened, the Jets might even been shut out for the rest of the half because they didn't score.
Well, that interception you're talking about was in the first half. Where he only had to go 5 yards for the touchdown. That was in the first half. That was Cutler's interception that he threw. That was tipped. In the second half, the interception that was thrown, they only had to march 45 yards.
Oh,
down.
yeah, you're right.
They went seven plays, 45 yards. Took them 4 minutes. They went down, but still 45 yards.
Oh, that was the Austin Safari Jenkins touchdown.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. I'm sorry. My bad.
No, it's okay.
No, I'm terrible.
Just proving that you're human, that's all. But, I mean, I just really like the way that throughout this entire season, with the exception of maybe the first Jets loss and the Saints loss, our team hasn't given up at all, and they've really stuck to their game plan. And the coach, like I said again, he's showing, hey, this is my team, this is my playbook, this is what we're going to do. Now,
and he has the track record to back it up. Because going into last year, they won all those close games, and now it's like whenever we can keep it close,
there's the belief that we can win.
That's what gets your team to keep fighting and stay, keep the mentality to keep their heads in the game. And it's a big thing. It's something that this team has not had for years and years and years until Adam Gase came along. Yeah. And my friend Rob Chureba still hates on Adam Gase, but I don't think this season is Gase's fault. Because, when your starting quarterback goes down, it's just hard. You're going to go through rough times. And they're lucky enough to be in this spot at 4-2.
They're 4-2. Like I say, if the season ended today, we're the 6th seed in the playoffs. You wouldn't have thought about that when Ryan Tannehill went down. You brought in Jay Cutler.
Nope. Not with the way the offense has been playing. I'm surprised our defense was that good to hold.
We're a few plays away from being 0-6 right now instead of 4-2. So, I mean, and that's something that when it comes around later in the season to the playoffs, a lot of teams that are with good records might not have had to scrap like that. Where we've had to scrap week in and week out and get these victories. So we know what it takes. And maybe you hit a team with a left hook late in the season that they weren't expecting because they haven't been in those positions, and you are able to find yourself in the second round of the playoffs because you know what it takes.
Maybe we get the New England Patriots in a tight spot in the game because they haven't. I mean, have they had any close games so far? I mean, I think there was a couple, but
they had a very close game against Houston, and I believe it was the very next week they had another very close game that Brady was able to etch out victories because,
Deshaun Watson had like 5 touchdowns in the game.
Yeah, Tom Brady went down
What a great
with
player.
a minute and change and drove down for a touchdown to win the game against the Texans. But, I mean, looking to the future, we're starting to run out of time here, but looking into the future, we go in Thursday night against the Ravens.
We meet again at last.
The Ravens have not been a great team this year. They're not a bad team. They're getting healthier, but what would you like to see different from this week going into the Ravens?
I would like to see the offense perform against the Ravens for the first time in, oh man, I don't even know how many years. Jeez. I mean, it's been so long, man. Going back to 2007 when we beat the Ravens for the first time. I think I was in my early 20s. I think I was in my first year of college. That's how long it's been, and I'm 30 now.
Yeah, no, I was still in high school myself.
It's been 10 years, 2007 to 2017. It's been 10 years since we beat the Ravens. I thought it was even longer than that, going back to that early 2002 playoff loss with Jay Fiedler and Ricky Williams and that team back then. But apparently it wasn't that long, thank goodness.
Yeah, the Ravens right now, they have 3 wins on the season. They're coming off back-to-back losses. One was in overtime against the Bears, which everybody would have thought that the Ravens would win. Mitchell Trubisky getting his first start.
The Bears are what we thought they were.
But that Bears defense is really underrated too. No one talks about them enough. They're pretty good.
The Bears are who we thought they were.
Yeah, and then they went into Minnesota yesterday and they lost 16-24.
Another good defense.
Another good defense, another good team. And it's away. And it was still a 1-possession game. Now it's a short week. You have a new quarterback coming in for the Dolphins and Matt Moore. I would just want to see the same thing we've been seeing, and that's consistency. Stick with the run game. I mean, J.J. still had 23 carries yesterday on 51 yards. Ooh-wee! I mean, you know what the bread and butter is. Run the ball, run the ball, run the ball. Hopefully Cutler or Matt Moore does enough to win the game. And again, let's put the defense out front and say, defense, keep us in this game. Make us win this game. That's what I see. That's what I want to see. Basically, more of the same is what I want to see. I don't necessarily want to see too much different. Run a 3-game winning streak. Why do you really want to change too much stuff up? We finally got the tight ends involved. Let's see that continue to go. Kenny Stills is starting to break out right now, and he showed you his chemistry with Matt Moore. Jarvis Landry had 7 catches for 90-plus yards and a touchdown.
The Force is strong with him.
Great little safety valve for Matt Moore.
Exactly. So, I mean, you have these weapons around him. So, I mean, and like I said, he's not a bad quarterback.
No, he's not.
And
he's smart, but he's also a gunslinger too. But also Cutler is too. I'm actually surprised how conservative Cutler's been. I don't know if that's him still adjusting to his players in this offense, even though the whole point the whole reason why we brought him in here was because he's familiar with the offense. And in practice, it looks like he's slinging it downfield a little bit more. For whatever reason in the games, it's a lot of dink and dunk stuff.
I think it's just trying to be conservative and not have him do too much.
Yeah.
We don't want him to lose us the game more as we want him to win us the game is what I believe it is.
Just
and
keep the chains moving, keep ball control kind of thing.
We're going to see the same thing with Moore this Thursday. So I'm going to go ahead and call it. I'm going to say we end the streak. The defense shows out again. I mean, you have Dalvin Cook, or different team. Sorry about that.
Joe Flacco.
The purple. Joe Flacco, and he's still not fully healthy either.
Yeah.
And you're going against a defensive line with, Cameron Wake and Ndamukong Suh, Andre Branch, Charles Harris. I mean, it's a great defensive line. You get him hit, get him dirty. maybe make them a little more sore. I think the Dolphins are able to go in and win this game on a short week because, again, there's still not much time for them to get good footage of Matt Moore. So I'm going to call it now another victory for the Dolphins. 4-game win streak to come back home for a Sunday night game against the Raiders.
I like it. Because even with Tannehill, I was predicting we would beat the Ravens this year. And if you look at both these teams, they're very, very similar. The Ravens are horrible on offense. They're one of the worst teams to watch. So are the Dolphins offensively, but they both have good defenses.
Yeah.
The difference between their defenses is that the Dolphins give up a lot of yards in the passing game, and the Ravens are one of the best against the pass. But to our benefit, if the offensive line could just open holes, the Ravens are at the bottom of the league in giving up rush yards. They allow 145 yards per game, and then that is what we want to do. We want to run the ball with Jay Ajayi and keep the chains moving and just make it easy for our quarterbacks to feed off the play action. Hopefully, Mike Pouncey can turn into his old self, which I don't really believe he can anymore.
I don't believe he can either. That hip is too messed up.
Yeah. And he played last game, but even last game we weren't opening up that many holes. Granted, a lot of the Jets have a lot of good players on the defensive line, but even they allowed a bunch of yards. So if we could do our bread and butter play and just run the ball, that's going to give us a chance. But we have to do that consistently against the Ravens because, like I said, you don't want Matt Moore passing against the number 7th pass defense.
No, you absolutely don't. And it doesn't matter what kind of wide receiver threats you have out there. But, again, like you said, you want to see the rushing game go. The field was messed up this last week, so that really put a damper on our rush game. We're going to go into Baltimore, have a better field, rush game, pick itself back up, open up some passes downfield, some play actions. But that's going to really kind of do it for this week. I'm going to get your little Twitters in and everything. If you want to go ahead and let them know, Mike.
Yeah. It's at FTBall Mike Hearn. I post as many Dolphins as many Dolphins articles as I can write. You can also find this podcast there because I can pin it to the top of my profile. And also just as many Dolphins updates as I can, along with as many notable NFL updates as I can. So it's at FTBall Mike Hearn.
All right, mine is Woto954, WOTO954 on Twitter. That's all of mine. I'd post, like I say, nothing but Dolphins-related material, and I will be posting these podcasts as well on there. Thanks for listening, folks. There's another Dolphins Victory Monday, and we look forward to talking to you next Monday after, hopefully, what is going to be 4 straight victories for your Miami Dolphins and sitting in first place. Have a great night. Take care, folks.
Woo, 5-2.